Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is Series 7 Guru, aka Dean Tinney, coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Let us know what series exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. We're every Tuesday, 5 p.m. It's first come, first serve in the chat. And so we'll knock out some housekeeping and then we'll get busy, answer any content questions you have. If you do have a question, it's easier for me to pick it out of the chat if I know what it's about. Because, is it about SIE or Series 7? Because there's a lot of overlap and that will help me. So SIE followed by your capital Q and what your question is. And that just helps us kind of pull that out of the chat. It's not necessary. It's just helpful. The best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is organized in series playlists. So you would find your series, for example, SIE. The first playlist is a podcast episode that shows you what it looks like, bookend to bookend, cover to cover. I would use that first. Then there's a lecture. The lectures playlist 2, lectures. And then there's a whole playlist of practice tests. So all those playlists, all those videos in suggested watch order. Listen, there's over 1,000 videos there. There's 1,500 hours of content. If you're looking for a particular thing, you need to use the channel search bar. So you would put, for example, accrued interest in the channel search bar. That'll come up all the content we have available, or parity, or margin. I can't tell you how many times I get people asking, do you have a video on this? And the answer is usually yes. I have more than one. Put that in a channel search bar. If you are looking for a paid supplement, I think the best paid supplement to your study materials is a Kaplan Q Bank if you don't already have one. A Kaplan Q Bank is the best Q Bank out there because it has a performance tracker and you can manipulate it. It just makes it easier for you to do remediation. For Series 7, that's like $55. With the 15% discount code at checkout. The other paid supplement is Test Geek, and Brian has been kind enough to give our viewers a 20% discount on Test Geek content. We also have other communities. I try not to bother you too much with, hit the like button and notify for new things. So we're much more active in our Guru Nation other communities. We have a Facebook group called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for new people in the securities industry, rookies. And then a hat trick, 3 successes in a row. And so you can join that. We also have Reddit communities. Our Reddit communities are R6 for Series 6 for 6 things, 7 for SIE and 7, and 66 for 63, 65, and 66, and 24. Welcome, Brian.
Good afternoon.
Commercials, you showed up perfect, right? So commercials are done. All right. So for Series 9, should test takers spend much time studying butterfly collars and condors? I'm going to answer you, Banana, and then I'm going to defer to Brian. I say no. I say it's a rabbit hole and people waste all kinds of time and then they miss the mark because it's mainly about sales supervision. I would definitely be able to recognize option strategies that subject clients to unlimited risk, like a ratio right, for example. Naked calls. I would know how spreads can be used to lower margin requirements and lower risk, but very big picture. What do you say, Brian?
You got it, man. You got it. Yeah. Butterflies and condors are for horror movies.
Yeah. And Series 4. Series 4 more that. I do, Banana, have a video. I think it's in the 9 playlist. And Banana, I apologize, but this was a good recommendation. I just haven't had time to do it. I've been asked several times to separate the 9 and the 10 playlist. And it makes sense. Right now I have it all in one playlist. But in that playlist, I do have things on condors and butterflies. It's mainly for the 4. I put it in there just because, people sometimes ask. Hola, ¿cómo está, Daniel? Hola. Nevin's taking a 66. Newton, Pennsylvania. I think my cigar shop is actually there. Nevin, I think my cigar is international. I think there's somewhere in Pennsylvania. Rancho Mirage. We see Melissa. I always recognize Rancho Mirage. I told you my story already. How I used to have a client that was in the not Desert Shores, Desert Island Country Club. And Annenberg was the estate next door. I always was thinking, I got to find a way to get like a carrier pigeon to fly over that fence and drop a PPM on that guy. I think they turned it into like a wedding venue now or something like that. Series 7 question. All right, here we go. Scotty, regarding balance sheets, how does a convertible bond being converted into stock affect shareholders' equity? Well, we have the same net worth, right? But now we have more shares outstanding, right? So we get rid of the liability and then we're going to issue the stock. We didn't get any paid in surplus for the stock, right? We didn't, people didn't buy the stock. So what would you say? I would say it would have no effect on the equity. I think the net worth is going to be the same. It's just now we got more owners. What do you think? You think it goes up, Brian?
No, you're right, because it's on the same side of the balance sheet.
Right.
It's just changing from liabilities to shareholder equity. So,
do dividends affect net income? No, net income comes before dividends. So net income, right? Then we pay the preferred stockholders, and then we have what's called earnings available to common. So do dividends affect net income? No, the dividends are on the bottom of the income statement. I do have a balance sheet lecture, Scotty, so does Brian, and I'll link that in the video description. I have a whole class replay on fundamental analysis. I don't know what test you're taking, but it says Series 7. I think that's way overboard for Series 7.
It really is.
Way overboard. You just have to have a general understanding of a balance sheet income statement, maybe working capital, maybe current ratio, maybe quick ratio, debt to total capital. I would warn you that's a much bigger deal on 66.
Yeah, you got it. That's it.
Getting 70s, low and high 60s, past perfect. Are you ready? Well, I would say, Christian, that past perfect is much more difficult than the actual exam. So I do think those are higher scores, are higher on the actual exam. I don't like seeing 60s. I would like to see more 70s. What I would recommend, are you going to switch to Kaplan? Depends how much time you have. But if you do, the Kaplan Q makes $55 for the 7 with a 15% discount code. And you can do all latest simulated exams. I like that because that would give you confirmation. So then remember, Brian has a test key practice. It's pretty good too. And that would give you. So you can either do that free on the channel. I would say supplement with another practice exam, free or paid, just to confirm that past perfect score. I think it will confirm a higher score. My guess is you're going to get a higher score on Kaplan or Brian's test key than you're getting on past perfect. I don't like this question, and here's why. I think a lot of people miss the mark on 66 because they think there's a lot of overlap.
That's right.
And I think when they start reading it, they see overlap and they go, oh, it's the same stuff. No.
That's right.
So I would treat it with respect, Nevin. How much overlap on the 766? You would be better served for me to tell you nothing. Start fresh. New study effort, 66. The biggest thing that is not overlap is the regulations, the Uniform Securities Act. That's about half that exam. You never encountered that on 7. Analytical methods, you never encountered on 7. The depth of the balance sheet questions that we just blew off with the Scotty are definitely more challenging on 66. What do you say, Brian? Should we tell them there's overlap or not?
No. Our entire first episode of our 66 podcast answers this exact question.
I'll tell you what, Nevin, I'll link in the video description to that podcast series. I think it's our first episode. Were we so negative? Did we call it Who Fails the 66? I think we did. You know, how people fail. We talked about it in there. We did talk about it.
That's right.
What should you know for the 66? Oh my God. Sector rotation is tactical. Strategic asset allocation is not. right? Strategic asset allocation is going to have a lower cost structure and more tax efficiency than sector rotation. Sector rotation is rotating into sectors based on the business cycle, right? So if we think we're at the top of the business cycle and we're going into a recession, we'd be rotating out of stocks into defensive stocks, for example. By the way, it's pretty aggressive because if you miss the rotation, you can end up losing a lot of money. What do you think, Brian? Would you add to that?
No, I think that's it. You're exactly right. The sector rotation question relates to the business cycle, right?
Yeah.
The ups and downs. There's one question on sector rotation, one question on strategic versus tactical. That's it.
Yeah. The other thing I would add is just as an anecdotal kind of version of this, when COVID hit, a lot of the sector rotation folks rotated out of hospitality stocks and into defensive stocks. And then they thought the pandemic was over after a year, and they rotated into hospitalities, and the pandemic went for another year, and they got crunched. We're sending you, Christian, good test vibes. Good test vibes. Taking the 7 tomorrow. Well, Michael, you need to go get off this live stream and get some rest. You got to be the test. The biggest thing, Michael, I would tell you tomorrow is be confident in the execution of your study plan. Be confident in yourself, and most important, be confident in your answers tomorrow. High 70s is fine. I don't think you're going to get many order questions. Communication is going to be the definition of retail communication. That's more than 25. Pre-distribution approval by a principal. Correspondence, 25 or less, pre or post. I don't think you're at risk. I do not think you're at risk. Thank you for being a fan. I appreciate it. Lady Brill, you winner. Did you get my, I apologize. I am trying to keep up. I think, Lady Brill, I did respond to your claiming of your prize. And I did say you can join me for the office hour Thursday for free. You just go to my booking page. You can book that, and I will talk to you on Thursday for free on anything you want to talk about. 65 is Friday. I apologize, but that's the Thursday I have open. You're also invited to join us Thursday night for the Munis, and I would send you the link. And if you want, you can hang around afterwards and ask me 65 questions, or show up at the end and ask me questions. Marcel, another winner. Another winner. How is my steakhouse from the restaurant? Tell Mom hello, always. I haven't been since they redid it. Brian tells me it's wonderful. And, if you're not going to make it with us, so Brian and I are supposed to go check it out. So we'll let you know. I'll let you know. Brian has pretty good taste. I'd be awful surprised if Brian said it's good and then, I end up being disappointed. So we'll see. Good evening, Lady Brill saying hello. Thank you for all the help so far. I love, Rachel, that your picture there. You look very spirit-filled. Pass the SIE in the 7. Woo! Any tips? Yeah, we're going to link to that podcast, Rachel, that Brian and I did in the video description. We've talked about one thing that we would tell you is respect it. Respect the 66. I really do. I'm starting to believe more and more, Brian. I should just tell people to pretend they don't know any of it and just start fresh with a renewed study effort from the bottom up. So that's what I would tell you. I always believe getting started in any test to read the book. So, and I would tell you, NASAA reading is really a slog. I get it. But, if you can get yourself to read that book cover to cover, I highly recommend it. Brian, any thoughts on how to get started?
We've had several questions on the 66 in the last 2 minutes. Yeah. I want to say this with love in my heart. If this is your third test, which for many of you it is, this one will be your most challenging of the 3. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Take it, just like Dean said, as if you haven't done any of the other 2 exams. It's really quite different. So
yeah, we totally get it, Rachel, because you deserve to have a pep in your step once you pass that 7, right? You got your 2 testing victories, 2-0. You're coming in 3-0, and what's that saying? Slow your roll. Series 7 from Joshua, Texas. I have no idea where Joshua, Texas is, but I know Texas is a big, big, big place. I've been going through the 910 playlist. Pretty easy to find the course you need. Okay, well, thanks. I'm going to try and sort that out, just to turn it into 2 playlists. Desert Island, there you go. It's Sunnylands. Okay, there you go. So they turned it into, I think, like Melissa, right? Where you can do like weddings and things, I think. At one point, Brian, Walter Annenberg, he's passed on. But don't you love, I would hope to get this old and this lucid. We were just talking about sector rotation, and he had bought 4.9% in the 80s of Ford, 4.9% of GM, and 4.9% of Chrysler, the big three. He bought at the bottom, they sold at the top, and they were interviewing him about his prowess. And they asked him, Melissa, how did he make the investment? He said, I was driving around Rancho Mirage, and everybody had a junky car. And I figured they're going to have to buy a new one. I wasn't sure which one they were going to buy. At the time, the domestic manufacturers had 70% of the automobile market. So I thought, well, if I buy 4.9 of all of them, 7 out of 10 times somebody buys a car, I would participate. And then they said, how'd you decide to sell? He said, I was driving around Rancho Mirage. Everybody had a new car. I said, wow, the rest of us would have been paralysis by analysis. We would have been ready, aim. He calls his broker, buy 4.9, Chrysler, GM, Ford. Wouldn't work today because the big three are no more in terms of market share and the other stuff.
Peter Lynch, the famous Magellan fund manager, pretty much said the same thing. Invest in what you know.
Yeah.
If you're working in the tech industry, why are you buying medical instrument companies, right?
One of my favorite, you should read everything Peter Lynch has ever written. But Peter Lynch also had a saying I love, Brian. He said, you should only buy stocks in companies that any idiot could run, because someday some idiot will be. When I pass the 66, I'll send you a box of cigars. Well, that would be greatly appreciated. Nevin, the gift or gratuity rule does not apply to tutors and teachers. So knock yourself out. Series 7, question from the Axel test. Ooh. RR is working as the same building as a bank or lender. Do they need their own office? I would like more information. I would say no. We can share office space. Where this becomes an issue is, I think, so the answer on the 7 is yes. But if we are doing securities off the same platform, so what I'm thinking here is a bank with a broker dealer selling investments off the banking platform, that has to be a segregated area of the office. I joke, Brian, I say, hey, if you want to risk your capital, see that area over there in yellow tape that says caution? That's where our investment person sits. And over there, your capital is at risk. So if you're an RR working out, I wouldn't say the same building. So if the bank is on the first floor and I'm on the 15th floor, and that's a different thing, then there's no problem whatsoever, and particularly for different businesses. But if we're both on the ground floor and we're both in that same area, that's a different thing, right? And the disclosure is acceptable. So yeah, that you understand you're talking to a broker. Sometimes it's pretty transparent, like Wells Fargo Securities. But some banks use like LPL as their, broker dealer affiliate, and LPL is independent of that bank. Key points: disclosure is always the right answer. Sunlight is always the best disinfectant. I'm not sure. You got a cigar there? You have an eye. Thank you also for the 7. What distinguishing factors should we know about variable life insurance versus variable annuity? I thought variable life had a general account also for payments. I would tell you, Scotty, that the bigger questions are variable annuity. You may get one question on variable life. Every once in a while, I get a report that somebody gets asked about a hypothetical illustration on a variable policy. Hypothetical and go to 12 and you have to 1-0 period. What do you think, Brian, about variable life potential test questions? I would say I feel comfortable telling you guess B, it's not a universe, and move on, and no variable annuities. What do you say, Brian?
Yeah, there may be one on the 7, but if you're going to end up doing the Series 66 next, then you're going to have to need it. And you're absolutely right. The variable insurance does have both a general and a separate account. And there's a minimum guaranteed death benefits to it, but it can always vary above that minimum guarantee. So there is both a general and a separate account in variable life. Like I said, there is a minimum amount of death benefits, but the cash value is not guaranteed whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. And the other thing I would know, Scotty, is you can't sell life insurance as an investment opportunity. So variable annuities are investment opportunities. Variable life is not. Brian, would you agree with me on this? I might be talking out of school.
Are they still doing that 12% advertising thing?
I've had people tell me they had a hypothetical illustration question about in variable life, what's the maximum number you can use in an illustration? It's 12, but then you got to have one period as 0. Every blue moon, I hear something like that. I was going to ask though, Brian, what do you think about what I'm about to say? True, false? I'm not sure because I might have this wrong. At the best case scenario in a variable life situation is you end up with self-funded life insurance or not, right? If you can get that separate account to a certain size, might you be end up getting insurance that, is being sustained by the separate account?
But again, it's like I said, there's that minimum guarantee. Let's say there's 50,000, but the separate account, you're hoping that that death benefit goes above it. So that's probably where your self-funded comes in. Yeah.
Evan, very testable. Very, very testable. Voting, in our corporate charter, we will stipulate the type of voting we're using. I think, Brian, one of the reasons Elon Musk is so ticked off is that he wasn't around at the founding of Tesla. Even though we call him the co-founder, the corporate charter for Tesla already existed. And Tesla has statutory voting. Most corporations do. With statutory voting, if I have 500 shares and we're voting on 3 board seats, 500 yes, no, 500 yes, no, 500 yes, no. I think, Evan, like the state of Nevada has statutory voting. If there are 10 propositions on the ballot, I get to vote simply yes, no on those 10 propositions. I would love it if Nevada used cumulative or block voting, because if I had 10 props on the ballot, I have 10 votes. If legalizing cannabis is my big thing, I could put 10 for or 10 against, and I can't vote anymore. So with cumulative block voting, statutory is called regular way. If we have 500 shares and we're voting on 3 board seats, I'll give Brian his board, we would have 1,500 votes, and we could spend them in any fashion we would like, as Brian is showing there. Evan, one of my favorite business history cases based on this was a company where the single largest shareholder was not on the board, and they were using cumulative voting, and he decided he wanted back on the board. Evan, he put all his votes on himself. Hi, guys, I'm back. Him and 6 guys who can't stand him. The next time they come up, the board is usually staggered. He voted for his attorney. Him, his attorney, and 5 guys who can't stand him. Cumulative voting protects minority shareholders. In this story, Evan, then he got an activist shareholder, and between him and the activist shareholder, they own 50.1% of the stock. And they said to the board, listen, you need to get with the program here. If you don't, we're going to call a special shareholder meeting. And what we're voting on is liquidating the board in one fell swoop and reconstituting. I'd add one more thing, very testable, Evan. Some corporate charters like Google, like Facebook, like Ford, have super voting shares. Super voting shares are very testable. And that's where you have more than 1 vote per share. So like Zuckerberg shares, dual class of equity it's called, his shares have 10 votes per share. So it's unlikely we're kicking Zuckerberg out of Facebook, right? The Ford family, for example, owns 7% of the common stock. It has 10 shares of votes, so they control 38% of the votes. Again, that would be stipulated in the corporate charter. So all of those are testable. Statutory voting, also known as regular way. Cumulative, also known as block. I would know cumulative protects smaller shareholders. And then super voting, more than 1 vote per share, right? Anything want to add to that, Brian? It's very testable. Brian.
Yep.
Doesn't he do brilliant board work? And just for those of you who are new, you can tell where Brian's at based on his board. So let me see. I'm going to put you back there so I can see. This is the bling board. So he's in Vegas, baby.
That's right.
If it's timber, it's wood. He's in the Northwest.
That's right.
I know I've beaten this horse, 65 questions. But I get brain fog over efficient market hypothesis. I'm taught what EMH is, but then the Q, that's about analysis. I get all turned around brain fog. Okay, I'll give it a shot and I'll turn it over to Brian. I like to take it on either end. So what I like to do, Lady Brill, is get rid of the middle and just go to the ends. So strong form, nothing works. That's what I like to think. Strong form, nothing works. That's the strong form. That's the random walk. There's no rhyme or reason. You can't beat the market. Weak form says technical analysis doesn't work because that's information everybody has. Semi-strong means material non-public information to beat the market, right? So that's it. It's pretty simple. I think the test prep vendors make it way more complicated than it really is. Brian, what say you about that?
Well, I don't know if you're going to like this.
Oh, me or Lady Brill?
Both.
Okay, here we go.
I oftentimes tell people this because the textbook goes into, and the Q bank goes into whether technical versus fundamental will work or not, right? Which is all accurate. But I believe most times on the test, they're asking what specific information is actually available for each one, right? For example, price and volume, that's historic information is the weakest. Semi-strong includes company financials, which sometimes they simply say public information. And then strong, everything is available, both public and private information. So I like to teach these actual constituents and what they're tied to, rather than really trying to decide whether it's technical this and fundamental that. I don't think the test really relies upon that a lot. The textbook and Q banks do, but I don't think the test does. And I think that's one reason why there's issues with it.
I would also add to this that what follows from this is that if you believe in strong form, right, you would index the money because you wouldn't want to try and beat the market. You're just going to accept a market-based return. So that's what follows from this.
Exactly. I like that.
Big points on the SIE regarding differences between open and closed. Evan, that's always testable on every exam. Very testable. I have a whole lecture on that. I have a slide I love. I will connect to that. The biggest testable distinction, open means just that. Continually offering new shares to the public. Closed means one-time IPO, trade supply and demand. Don't know if you followed this, Brian, but boy, egg on the face. Bill Ackman wanted to do an IPO for a closed-end fund. I thought, wow, we haven't seen an IPO for a closed-end fund in a long time. And he made his registration statement. He entered in the cooling off period, and he was trying to raise permanent capital for him to invest. He ran into the problem of people saying, well, wait a minute. If I buy that on the IPO, isn't it typically going to trade at a discount to the NAV? I think Bill, I'll wait until it's in the public marketplace. And so he yanked that offering. I thought it was interesting. Jason Zweig, who's the mutual fund columnist for the Wall Street Journal, had a great column on the closed-end format and how it's not as popular as it used to be, and how he wishes Bill Ackman would have done it correctly to reestablish the proper closed-end fund. You know, oh well. Rafaela, thank you for joining us from Facebook. We broadcast to Facebook, LinkedIn. Our preferred platform is YouTube. I have given up broadcasting to X because, like the president, former president last night, I always have problems with X. Every time Brian and I go live, I get something from X saying, you got a problem with your feed. I go, I don't think it's me. I think it's you. So I've just given up. So thanks for joining us. You scheduled a live class with Kaplan. Great. Have you guys heard any feedback on it? Well, Rafaela, I hear there's a great Kaplan instructor who right now, this week, is teaching at 3 day 7 that he actually just got finished from his class. So yes, I think class is worthwhile. Obviously, I'm teasing, but I teach for Kaplan. I teach the Series 7 for Kaplan. I'm not a Kaplan employee. Kaplan contracts with my LLC to do so. But I teach the SIE first month of each quarter, the 7, the second month of each quarter, and the 66, the third month of each quarter. Whether it's me or some other Kaplan instructor, Mark Esposito, Richie Holmes, whoever it happens to be, what I like about classes is it's a lot more efficient financially than it is for tutoring, right? If you want to hire me as a tutor, that's going to cost you a lot of money as compared to 21 hours this week doing Series 7 stuff, right? Brian has his video courses. Now, a live class, I should tell you, doesn't mean we're going to a physical classroom. I'm teaching with Zoom. So it's I think we have close to 40 people in the class this week. So I highly recommend it. If it's Kaplan, you get a 15% discount at checkout with Guru 15. And it tells you who the instructor are. So, you can check that out and come back and tell me who your instructor is. And I'll tell you, I'm probably not going to say they're terrible. I'll probably just say, how about this guy? What do you think, Brian? Would you recommend a class?
Fair and full disclosure, both Dean and myself are long-time ex-Kaplan instructors.
Yeah.
We've been doing this since the 90s.
Yeah, when they got too corporate, Raphael, Brian and I said, okay, exit stage.
Exactly right.
I was able to comp somebody at Kaplan class. Oh, my God. If I want to help somebody out and I call Brian to comp somebody, it's like, boom. And boy, I feel bad. I have to call some senior vice president guy. And but anyways, I still like the classes because it gives you that bookend. And I refer to Brian. I gave myself my own title at Kaplan. So we'll see when HR shuts me down. I am referring to myself as a senior instructor emeritus. Senior instructor emeritus. You like that one?
Yes, I do.
Past the 66. Woo-hoo. Well, Brendan, mum's the word.
We're word for word.
Yeah. Listen, Brian and I, sometimes get really aggravated with people who say that nobody knows what's on the actual exam. Now, we're not allowed, Brendan, to ask you, like, what was question 35? But Brian and I spend a lot of time and resources saying, hey, Brendan, what could we have done a better job preparing you for? For example, Lady Brill, this will be on her mind. We just had a discussion with her about efficient market hypothesis. When she tests, it's going to be on her brain housing group. And if we were not correct, trust me, she's going to say, wait a minute, this is how I saw it. And then we say, okay, it's called, and when we're shooting, we call it windage, right? So Brian and I are aiming and we say, okay, what is this thing about a SPAC? People are saying they're seeing SPACs. What could that be? Sometimes I kind of find, Brendan, I don't know about you, Brian, I feel like it's like a hunting expedition. And then finally it dawns on me what they're talking about right on debrief. So good to hear. I say it this way, Brendan. Everybody knows this. It's kind of like asking me about Kaplan, same about asking about testing. I think Brian's practice tests have the highest correlation to the actual exam. Brian gives you scores that you can rely upon when you're testing. And that's so key because sometimes people get scores and, you're looking for that as kind of like a green light of whether you're ready to go or not. And, we want to have a good idea of whether you're at risk or not. And Brian, I think, does the best job of that. By the way, I wish he'd do more practice questions, but remember, he's not writing practice questions. He's writing a diagnostic practice test. That's a different thing. Sometimes people, Brian, will ask me about my practice test that's in the playlist that I wrote. And I say, no, you can't rely upon that at all because I'm just trying to share things with you. I'm not trying to, tell you this score means anything. I just want to make damn sure that you know about a quadro. I want to damn sure you know about this. So mine are not designed to be diagnostic. Ginnie Mae versus Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Ginnie Mae is the test question. Ginnie Mae test question pays interest and principal monthly. Ginnie Mae test question is fully taxable. Ginnie Mae, unlike the others, has the direct full faith and credit backing of the U.S. Treasury. Again, whenever there's three of a thing, you should be ready for the accept format. right? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do not have the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury, and they don't pay interest and principal monthly. They have an implied backing. What do you think, Brian? I think he means Fannie Mae. I don't think he means FNHA. I don't know.
Right, that's right. Yeah, there's not a lot of it on the test on the 65 anyway, but you're right. It's almost always the Ginnie Mae, right? They're the only ones that pay monthly income, right? Everybody knows that most bonds pay semi-annual. Well, Ginnie Mae is one of those exceptions that pays monthly. And of the agencies, Fannie, Freddie, and Fannie, they're the only ones that are backed by the full faith and credit of the government. And that's it.
Yeah, whenever they
move on.
Yeah, whenever there's three of things, be careful because they love the accept format. Right? Ginnie Mae's A, pay interest and principal monthly. B, are directly backed by the U.S. Treasury. C, fully taxable. And then the D choice will be something that is not true. All right, there she is again. I was looking for you for communication for the 63. I couldn't find it. Do you mind linking? Not at all. So I will put in the video description the link to our 63 playlist. Absolutely. What do you suggest after failing? Should you rewatch all the lectures? I have a podcast episode that I'll link to, Colby, called You Failed, Is It Over? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. And in that podcast episode, I make 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. I think the first thing you should do is, while the hurt is fresh, do a intellectual debrief with yourself. I would go get either the content outline from FINRA or test specifications from NASAA, and I'd go through each of those items and do a plus, minus, 0. Plus means you think you were good at it, above par, passing. 0 means you're par, minus means you're below par, and you want to get everything up to par. You want to overlearn. I would also recommend a refresh and reset. After you do that, you should do that right away. Take 3 or 4 days to refresh and reset. And I would start easing back in by reading the book again, cover to cover. People don't like to hear it, but read the book, ease into the practice questions, and go back. We don't know how close you came. And that would also, I think, reflect whether you want to start over again or you want to just kind of lay base. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. One thing I would add to that, the content outlines, especially the NASAA exams, look at that list of content. It'll be amazing how much actually you will start to remember from what you saw on the real test to that content outline. And use your score sheet that you got from the test center and compare and contrast with the content outline. You'll find that there's usually one, or again, depending on your score, maybe 2 areas that you were deficient in, and the content outline is going to show you, it's going to tell you exactly what areas, which will then correlate to your textbook units and your QBank units and Dean's videos and my modules and those sorts of things. And that's what you do. You build those weak areas up, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then just remember too, that you might actually end up with a different draw. So make sure you keep everything you had above par. You keep it there, because I've seen people accidentally, they get good at the other thing and the other thing falls off. So I'm not sure I understand this one, Brian. When passing the Series 7, do you recommend taking a practice SIE test?
No.
Or jump right into it? So are you doing it in reverse order? I'm assuming, Brian, the SIE and 7 are co-requisites, but you don't have to do the SIE to do 7. The way I'm understanding your question, Brian, is that you have passed the 7, but now you got to circle back for the SIE. I think you could take an SIE test just to do an intellectual inventory, see how much of that is familiar. So I'm not opposed to that, or jump right into it. I think either one. I think the test might be helpful just to kind of see how much of that looks familiar. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, if you've already passed the set, you're right. You're doing it in reverse order. The Series 7 is the SIE on 47 steroids. So after passing the 7, the SIE really shouldn't be much of a challenge for you. Do that SIE practice final again, and then use the same thing. Use the content outline, and based on your practice exam score, find areas of weakness.
I think you're going to make it, Brian. I think, I don't want to put in negative vibes, but boy, would that be embarrassing, right? If you pass your 7 and then circle back and miss the SIE. Yeah, beautiful. There, no problem, Lady Brill. I'll check out the emails. I am slammed. I'm tutoring in the morning. I'm teaching during the day. I'm doing the live stream. So I apologize. So feel free to nudge me and say, hey, Dean, I'm pretty sure that I did respond to the one I found. I'll look again and respond accordingly. I looked for your communication with customers, but I wasn't able to find it. So did you put that in the search bar? I'm not sure what content you're looking to find. Put that in the channel search bar, and then if that doesn't come up, I'll look at myself and I'll try and link in a video description to content communication. My confusion might be, I don't know if you're taking a NASAA exam, but the communication sometimes can come under the heading of disclosure. Raza, I hope I'm getting that right. Raza, I like that. 66, all right. As a Series 7, I don't know how many times, Brian, we're going to have to answer this. There is no correct answer on these exams except T+1. T+1 is the correct answer to all settlement questions. I've made numerous videos on this. If you answer anything other than T+1, you're going to get marked wrong. I had somebody today, they're using dated materials. I can't help you if you're using dated materials. So I have a video. I'll link to it, Brian. The biggest that follows from that, and in theory it should be easier, is the X date is now the same as the record date. The X date, it shouldn't be a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal. Want to thank you for helping me pass the SIE at Series 7. Ooh. You look a little young, Nick, to be taking these exams. What topics do you recommend start focusing? Test date coming up. Brian and I say, Nick, we spent a lot of time on it. Start with our podcast.
Please.
Start with our 66 podcast. I really think I've actually rearranged the playlist, and I put the 66 podcast as playlist number 1 for the 66, because I think that gives you, Nick, a nice overview of the content, what you're going to encounter. It's Brian and I going back and forth. So that's what I would recommend. Watch that. I don't think, Brian, I don't think we have anything very lengthy. I mean, what are we, 45 minutes an episode?
Yeah, I think all of them average about 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 of them. So watch that. Sharp ratio, internal rate of return, future and present value.
Watch my YouTube, please.
Yeah, Brian has a video on this. Sharp ratio, I would just know higher Sharp ratio is better, because that means you're getting more return per unit of risk. The way I describe that, Melissa, is when Brian and I are portfolio managers and our returns are the same, it's not necessarily a tie. Because then I say, Brian, even though we had the same return, I have a higher Sharp ratio, which means I got the return with lower risk. Internal rate of return. So, where internal rate of return comes in is sometimes like a bond, and they say the internal rate of return is most similar to, and it is, the bond's yield to maturity, right? Future and present value. So future and present value is based on the internal rate of return and discounted cash flow. We have lots of videos on this. I'll link to one I have, and I'll let Brian have his board. What do you want to add to that, Brian?
I think it's the best YouTube video that I've ever done. Especially if you're a non-finance major, like me. I was not a finance major. Reading that stuff in the textbook didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I did my own research and dug down and finally began to understand it. It first started coming up on the test, Dean. I don't know if you remember this. It was 2010. I can even tell you, September 2010. This stuff started showing up on the 66. It's still on there, and it's on the 65 to some degree as well. So not too long ago, probably a little less than a year ago, I put a YouTube video. It's free. It's 18 minutes long, if that, on discounted cash flow and internal rate of return for non-finance majors like me. You'll love it. I think it'll answer all your questions for you.
So, Melissa, I will link to that Brian video in the video description. So if you're new with us, what I typically do is when Brian and I have content already for questions that people are asking, in the video description, I will link to that, and you can hit the link and you can find that. Listen, Brian doesn't usually oversell his stuff, so I believe him. And I always think, Brian, of your 24 video that's free. I say this all the time. I've had so many 24 test takers who just watch Brian's video, and they literally cry about, oh, it's that simple. Oh my God.
See, that's what the feedback, Dean, that you were talking about a little earlier. All the feedback we get, we find 2, 3, 4 areas, right? From the 65, 66, from the 7. We find them very common to people, right? 85% of the people will struggle with discounted cash flow and internal rate of return, no doubt, right? So that's what gives me the inspiration to do the YouTube video, which also, of course, helps market my video course.
Right.
That's the main reason why they're there. But it's also on these sticky points.
Yeah. So just a reminder, not everything Brian has is you got to pay for. There's a lot of free videos on his YouTube channel. So check out some of those videos. I told you, if you're 24, great on buy-ins and sellouts. This video is great. There's another one I saw you had, Brian. I can't remember what it was, but it's pretty damn good as well. So key products and risks on the SIE. Well, for a live stream, Evan, that's a large discussion. I'm not sure, Evan, if you're the person who told us you already took a 7, or is that with somebody else? But yeah, that's the biggest part of the exam. It's 33 questions. I mean, you're taking a test on the securities industry essential, and the thing most essential to the securities industry is securities. Stock, bonds, mutual funds, right?
Even
so
option question.
That is the biggest section. The biggest section is that. I have a video. My turn. I have a video, Brian, that has over 100,000 views on the key products and risks of the SIE, Evan. I will link to it. I think I'm at 130,000 views, some crazy number.
Yeah, I'm only at 67,000.
Front running is trading ahead of a customer, and trading ahead is usually about maybe a research report. But front running and trading ahead, I don't think there's a testable distinction. Running is trading ahead of customers. Like, I have an institutional customer. I know when they start to buy it, the stock is going to go up. So I put in an order for myself. That's front running. Trading ahead could be trading ahead. I'm thinking here, I don't have the context of it, more about I'm publishing a research report and I'm trading ahead of the research report. So that would be the distinction I would make. How about you, Brian?
That's exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely making trades for yourself prior to you making recommendations to your customers.
Yeah, and that is definitely
generally before published material comes out.
I would add that prohibited practices are a big part of the SIE as well. Right? So products and prohibited practices are big. May I ask for a suggestion on what I should do for my second attempt on the 63? I was 42 of 60. I used past perfect. Now that I was let go, as they only allow a second attempt. Bam, that hurts. That really hurts. I will link to the video that I told you about. You failed. Is it over? I would refresh and reset. And the 63 is small enough that I don't think I try and stay powered up for the 30-day wait. Remember, Estuardo, you do not need a sponsorship to take NASA exams. So you can take that 63 without sponsorship. I would suggest you do that because it might help your job search a little bit. You could also take a 65 after the 63. So I'd put it away for a couple of weeks and then I'd go right back at it. With different study materials. I think you need a different voice if you've been using Past Perfect twice and you didn't get the result you'd like. What do you think, Brian?
Absolutely. Please put that Past Perfect aside.
You have Achievable. I'm not a big fan of Achievable or Past Perfect. I'm not a fan of Achievable because of the lack of correlation of their practice tests to the actual exam. I'm also, Estuardo, a little worried that they don't any longer, I'll stand corrected if reach out to me. But I think they've lost their subject matter expert, which is Brandon Riff. He's the guy who wrote the questions, wrote the content. And my understanding is he's not there anymore. So I'm wondering who is the person that you can talk to at Achievable. I know they have a whole list of tutors, I guess you could reach out to. But I am not a big fan of Achievable as a primary study source. If you're using it as a supplement, I got no issues with it. But if you're using it as your primary study source, I think it puts you at risk. Hi, Cody.
Hey.
Non-discretion versus discretionary times. So time and price are not discretionary. That's true. If I tell Brian to buy 10,000 shares of GE today, at whatever time and price he thinks looks good. It is not a discretionary order. I gave him the action buy. I gave him the amount, 10,000 shares. And I gave him the asset. If the 3As are present, it is not a discretionary trade. I do not need discretionary authority to make a decision about time and price. Just review, get confused. Time and price is not considered discretionary. It is not. Brian is the floor broker for Morgan Stanley. I say, Brian, I want to give you a market not held order. Don't tell anybody you're holding this order for me. I want you to take an auction at whatever time and price you think looks good. Buy me 10,000 shares of GE. Market not held. Is that required discretionary authority? It does not. Right? Because I just told Brian action. I told him asset. I told him amount. Time and price is execution. You don't need discretionary authority for time and price. Very testing.
On a lot of different exams.
On lots of exams. Does Kaplan reflect the actual wording on the test the most? Well, if we toss Brian out of it, yes. If we put Brian into it, no. So I think Brian is the winner by a hair, followed closely by Kaplan in my estimation. I'm being facetious, not really. I mean, I really believe that. But Brian, what say you about test prep vendors?
When it comes to the NASA, I've mentioned this. I've described this many times. There's always a little gap between textbooks and the wording of the real test, no matter what exam you take, right? Because none of us are allowed to duplicate test questions, yes. Something that FINRA and NASAA scrutinize very closely. I don't think the gap on the textbooks and the FINRA exams, SIE 7 or 6, is that wide. I believe the gap does get wider, however, for the NASAA exams, 63, 65, 66. And that's all test prep vendors have a wider gap between what they write and how the actual test writes. That's how I describe it. Yeah, so there is a wider gap. And that's what Dean and I do. We sit there and fill in that gap. We are the bridge between the textbooks and the real test.
Distillation. Turning
mashed potatoes into premium vodka. That's right.
Well, Amanda, get some rest, man. Get some rest. So tomorrow morning, the best thing to do is get some sleep. You want to be dreaming happy thoughts, passing your exam, making your mark tomorrow. You bought Brian's SIE. You brought Brian's 7. All right. After a few other advisors recommended, yes. Most of our business for both of us was referral. Brian and I we're blessed, but we have so many referrals. I just don't have room for new people, so I guess it's a good problem to have. Free workforces. There you go. Chef's kiss. There you go. All the prayers. We'll be sending good test fives, Amanda. I'm going to go ahead and give you the early salary.
Go get them.
We usually wait for the testing victory, but we know you're going to get that mark tomorrow. Thank you, Brian. Pass the SIE 7 first try. Thanks to both of you all. 66 tomorrow, last minute videos. Yes, I have a series 66 in 60 minutes video. Check it out either tonight or tomorrow or both. So definitely check that out. Very popular. I have your series in 60 minutes for every series. And look at the comments too, by the way. That's very, I think, motivating. We got lots of people who circle back after they pass and leave some comments.
You know what, Dean? I don't think I've ever told you this, but the comments, the most I get from any of your videos are those 60-minute.
Really? There you go. There you go.
I get those a lot of comments.
They're very popular. My can you believe this? My SIE version has over 200,000 views.
Wow.
Crazy. Brian, I might have to put those behind a paywall.
Hey.
It's Past Perfect. I think Past Perfect is a fine vendor, Brian. I just think they get into the weeds a little too much. So that would be my comment. I don't think you're at risk with Past Perfect. But my God, they are obtuse. I mean, they have questions where, I had, for example, Brian, somebody was getting tutoring and literally they just wanted me to do past perfect questions with them. And I felt bad because they were questions they're never going to encounter on the actual exam. So I think they're a fine vendor. I think they give you too much. I think Exam FX doesn't give you enough. So somewhere in between there. I'm a big fan of SDC, Kaplan, Knopman. Your thoughts on Past Perfect, Brian? He's keeping his mouth shut. Raphael, Facebook, we thank you for joining us. Had trouble with YouTube. Well, good news. We broadcast to both platforms. I asked this question not long ago, but I'm still confused. You mentioned the Series 6 playlist is applicable order to watch. It starts with practice exams. Well, hey, I'll go check it out then, Raphael. It should not start with practice exams. So I feel bad. I don't pay as much attention to that. So I will go in there and I will put it in the proper order if it's not. It should be. I think I only have one playlist for the 6. I'll check it out, Raphael. And if I have too many videos in there, I'll split it like I split everything else. I'll make well, we haven't done a podcast. Maybe we should do that, Brian. Maybe we do a 6 podcast together. Then put the lectures and then do the test practice test. That hurts, Colby. That hurts.
Ouch.
It's unfortunate, but almost all the misses are close. Very rarely do we get people just really completely blow it. Brian, my sponsor provided Past Perfect. I've really liked it, even though it seems to be harder than other test promoters. I've supplemented Brian's videos in Kaplan's QBank. That's perfect, right? Because then you get confirmation, right? Past Perfect talks about it. Brian talks about it. It's on the test. Reverse order. I'm not. Yeah. Brian, that's weird. Yeah, but like I say, you don't have to go in order. Oh man, how do you get Brian's study notes? You go to. Hold on, let me grab the banner. You want? You can either email Brian.
That's my email. Yeah,
that's his email, and he'll tell you how to get it. Or if you just want to go get it, can they buy the PDFs there too?
The video comes with the PDFs. It's all
okay. Yeah. So 2 things. There's the where you can find the videos and the PDFs and everything, and then that's Brian email, and you can email him, and he can help you out as well. By the way, Brian, I'm getting pretty aggressive at telling people just to take things up with you because I have people who Brian's been kind enough to allow us to have his content on our YouTube channel. And I every once in a while get questions from people like, question 15, shouldn't it be this? Or question 26, shouldn't be that. Now I just say, contact Brian. He's more than happy to talk to you about it. And, I'm not going to get into it with you. What are my must-haves for the 66?
Wow, 66 night.
Yeah, Series 7 yesterday, thanks to your videos. All right, well, Genesis, perfect. I think we've answered this a couple times, Genesis. I really believe the best place to start is with the podcast series that Brian and I did. I would just watch that. You can take it to the gym, listen to it in the car. I think we did 6 episodes, 5 or 6. And they're about 40 minutes. And I think it gives you a nice overview of cover to cover what you're going to encounter on the exam. So that's how it would start. I'm actually, Brian, getting to the point, and it's probably because conflict of interest, Genesis, disclosure. But I'm getting to the point where I say you should probably even do that, Brian, before they read the book.
I'm thinking about that too. I'm thinking, especially episode 1. Especially episode 1.
Yeah. So
you should do that. Should be your first step in 66.
Yeah. Isaac, I think Isaac's like Lady Brill. I think I have responded, Isaac. I'm in a holding pattern. I think I told you I know you're out there, and I'm going to try and get this week done, and then I will circle back with you. 63, the best vendor is Kaplan. The 15% discount code at checkout is Guru15. Again, Barry, Brian and I are both former Kaplan instructors, so it would be surprising that we said anything other than Kaplan for any of the series exams. So we truly believe it, or we wouldn't say it, but practice test and write down each wrong answer. Repetition. I'm a big fan of that. Practice, drill, and rehearse. Practice, drill, and rehearse.
I like that. Nice.
Using STC. I like STC. Getting high 80s. That's right where you need to be, Melissa. Have a Kaplan QBank, Bob Bryan's video stories series. My scores are really high. They tell me at work, 80s are great, high 80s. Just be careful. I like that you have the Kaplan QBank. The STC QBank doesn't have the depth of Kaplan. And so sometimes, very rarely, don't want to sound negative vibes, but every once in a while I have somebody who has actually memorized some of the STC questions rather than understanding the concepts. So make sure you do a Kaplan simulation. And then good news, you got Brian's 66 practice test. It's spot on. If you haven't done it already, Melissa, if you're testing on a Friday, for example, I would do Brian's as your last mark to market, your last intellectual inventory. And I recommend, Brian, that people do your exam on Wednesday if they're testing Friday as their last mark. It gives them a day for remediation. And that, as I mentioned, Melissa, it's a pretty reliable score. So you might not get high 80s on Brian's practice test. But if you get, passing, you should feel pretty good. All right, I think we're caught up. So let's see now if Dean can figure this out. Boom. 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 Okay, so Brian, testing on the 20 QBank. Mary, see me or send me that QID, Mary, to Dean at Series 7 Guru. And I will tell you where the answer changes, but it certainly would if the answer was based on T+2. Is that a Kaplan question? I don't have access to anybody other than Kaplan's QBank, but send that to me and I'll check it out and I'll respond to you. There's my email, dean@guruexamprep.com, and I will check that out for you. But yeah, basically anything that was T+2. I'm not sure how many test prep vendors have updated materials, so it probably is, but send it my way and I'll check it out for you. Hey, thanks for joining us. General Securities Principal in the house, or would-be General Securities Principal, right? Babysitting sevens. Brian, you're always in charge of the word. What's the word of the day for the drawing? Borealis. Oh, is there something going on in the universe?
More northern lights. More northern lights.
Okay, let me now go find this if you want to participate. So Lady Brill is a winner. Isaac's been a winner. Marcel's been a winner. I want to be very clear with what you win. Within 1 hour, you send me an email, dean@guruexamprep.com, claiming your victory. And what you get is a free office hour, not tutoring. I do office hours. They're open to paid students. An hour with me is $225. You get that for free. You also get to register for any of my classes that you find on my booking page. My booking page is Dean Tenney Tutoring, setmore.com. And now let me go find the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune. All right. Boom. We have 13 entries. Anybody else want to participate? Going once. Going twice. 16 entries. All right, here it comes, the Wheel of Fortune. Genesis, there you go. Woo-hoo. So send me an email to claim it. I'll send you a link to the office hour, and I'll send you a link. I think the next class is Muni Bonds on Thursday night, followed by Equity Securities next week. And you also can register for that. I know, Lady Brill, you're a winner, and I will get in touch with you. And I think, Isaac, I still have to get a hold of you as well. Let's get rid of that. Boom. All right. So that concludes this episode of our live stream. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And you, Brian, say?
Especially if you're scoring very close to your good score. If you're scoring a 70 or 71 or 69, please remember, keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
What great advice. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.